Hi everyone, this is my video about what is wrong with Rebel Moon 2 The SCARGIVer. And luckily, it looks like I can screen capture Netflix as long as I'm not watching a movie. So this is good. I just watched, which one is it? So many of these. So you got the director's cut. Okay, so I watched this one, Rebel Moon The SCARGIVer. And I liked it. It was a very strange experience because I saw the first one when it came out, and man, I remember like three things about that movie. Like, I just remember calling it concept art, the movie. Like, you could tell, you know, I'm an artist and I've had sketchbooks and I've checked out other people's sketchbooks. And one of the things about sketchbooks is you just draw like whatever. You watch Conan the Barbarian, you draw barbarians the next day. You watch Blade Runner, you draw a Blade Runner-esque cityscape the next day. There's there's usually no rhyme or reason besides just I like this now. And that's what this was like. It was just these random hodgepodge of ideas and nothing gelled. Like, nothing gelled. And the funniest thing is there's this team that they assemble. So I guess there's two versions of every movie. There's the regular one, so I just watched this one. And then the freaking... the director's cut is 3 hours. I think the director's cut for the first one is 3.5 hours. That is crazy because I watched at least the second one on 1.5 speed, and the funny thing is there is so much slow-mo in this, you would think it was a city block run by Mama. Does anyone get that? I'm watching Dread right now, so anyway. But like, even on 1.5 speed, it's still slow, so I can't imagine. So the funny thing is that Zack Snyder got budget of like whatever, probably 300 million for the two movies, and then but he really only shot about 3 hours, and then he just slow-moed it out to like 5 or 6. So I really didn't like this one. It was literally like the most generic sci-fi. It's like, I know it started as a Star Wars pitch. It's like the rebels against the Empire, but like, just screw up everything. Usually they want some sort of resource, like they want water or air, or with Independence Day they want to use the center of the earth as fuel. But this one is they want grain. And you might say like, oh, all of the grain for an entire planet? No, just like one village. Oh, are there other villages on this planet? Doesn't seem like it. How many people? Like 100, maybe 200. And so if you remember, the first one was like, hey, we need your grain. We're going to be back in 5 days. You better have our grain. To which they're like, we won't have any grain to grain with after you take all of our grain. They're like, tough titty, said the kitty. That's not an actual line of dialogue. But anyway, so the first one, they leave to go find essentially the Magnificent Seven to defend the town. And then the second movie is defending the town. Now, I would say of the two, it's kind of a trick question. I like the second one more, but I don't remember the first one. I remember there was some sort of like bolt gun that went into the back of people's heads. There was a double cross. I remember a cool fight in, it was like in a barn. That was pretty cool. The barn fight. Ale? There was like a tavern, a lodge. I don't remember much. So, and it was only last December. So, but this one I did like because it was the Magnificent Seven. It was like, we got these warriors from all over the universe and they're going to defend this town, even though they kind of screwed up like everything. I mean, all you could have, it's sci-fi. You literally could have said, well, you know, we're settlers and you only need 200 of us to grow grain on the entire planet because we're just engineers and remote operators of these giant threshing machines, whatever. No, it's like actual, like the Middle Ages, how they grew grain. So, but anyway, the thing that I like about this, and this phrase kept repeating in my head, and it was the phrase agonizing sincerity. I don't know if Zack Snyder is autistic or he has Asperger's, but there is no sarcasm. There is barely any humor. And Sofia Boutella, who I just found out is 42, thought she was like 30. She plays this silly, silly movie so heartfelt and serious that it's engaging on that level. The other thing is there's some cool fights. There's some cool explosions. Especially there was this one scene where there was this like they them, and she's in some sort of recessed area. I think like a tunnel or something. And so you see this attack, but there's a lot of dust. So there's an explosion, then it fills the frame with dust. And then you see these laser blasts, and then you see the rebels there to rescue them. And it's all in one shot. Now, of course, it's a special effects shot with like a million different effects, but it's all one thing. And that was really cool. And there's lots of little stuff like that. There's cool ships. The problem is that like Zack Snyder, tongue-tied. You know how they have these production studios like Bad Robot or like they always have like these cutesy pie names. Like there's one called Weed Road. Zack Snyder's production company should be called I'm 14 and This Is Deep to Me, because that's like all of his movies. Just like, you know, when I was watching this, on one hand I'm supposed to say like, oh, this is silly and it's a bunch of plot holes, but also I was once 8 and I played with action figures, and these are the scenarios I came up with. That's why it's so weird that when they were advertising the director's cut, they're like, it has ultra violence and titties that they couldn't show in the regular version. It's like, well, first of all, they could have, but also like that doesn't match, because this is basically action figures, and it's not just action figures. It's playing with action figures from different lines at the same time. So you have like a Conan the Barbarian type of guy, and you have like a witch lady who has not lightsabers. They're actually heated machetes. But like you can tell that like Zack Snyder told a bunch of artists like just draw anything, let's just see what's cool, and he just said yes to everything, so nobody matches. Also, if you watch both of these movies, there's scenes where like one character will look at the other like fondly, or like, we've had so many adventures, and then you're like, I don't remember these two characters speaking ever. And they hadn't in the regular 2-hour version. Apparently in the 3 and 3.5 hour versions, they're having all sorts of adventures. But when you chop the shit out of it, and the funny thing is at the end of the second movie, they're very clearly trying to set up another sequel. It's like, you have a sequel. It's the 2.5 hours of the director's cut. You could have made this 3 movies. What are you thinking? And so there's all these unearned moments that it's like, don't tell me to watch the 3.5 hour version. Like, that's ridiculous. The other thing is like, it's just bad writing. Like they cluster almost everyone's origin into this 10-minute scene in the second movie, and everyone's origin is the same. It reminds me of, there's this comic book artist, Vida Ayala. And one time she was bragging about all of the characters she created, and it was literally the same character 10 times. It's like, shy until you get to know them. A bit of a geek. Vague energy powers. And that was every single character. So there's even things that like don't make sense. So at one point, Jaimon Hunsu, he's telling his origin, and he was a captain of a ship for the Empire. And then the Empire told him, kill all these innocent people. And he refused. And so the Empire executed the members of it. why am I saying members? The crew. It's it's not a traveling dance troupe. It's the crew of the ship. It's a large ship. It's hundreds of people, and they execute. And he's like, no! Those guys would have killed all of the people if you would have told them. You're literally like, the Empire killed other people in the Empire, and I'm getting revenge for these good men. No, you didn't think this through at all. And then even towards the end, there's a scene where Sophia Boutella's character. Stop, please. I didn't want to hear that. She fakes being she was one of the enemy soldiers. She left. Now she's faking like she's one of their pilots. So she goes up on her ship that she went AWOL from the Empire with. But you're like, bro, they don't have sensors. They're like, oh, that's the ship that was stolen 3 years ago by the traitor. They're just like, oh, one of our ships is coming towards us. Then they let it into the hangar bay. And then there's like these medics going like, oh, these guys are injured. Let's help them. And they're like very sincerely trying to save her life. And then she's like, haha, I'm not actually hurt. And then she kills all of them, but we just saw them be kind and empathetic and like seriously try to help her. So it's like, did you think through any of this, Zach? No, you're like, oh, she's in disguise. It's so cool. No, you need to have the dialogue. It's like, oh, look at this. Another bit of cannon fodder. Just throw them into the furnace. It's not worth wasting medicine on this, pilot. We have lots of No, they were like so kind and empathetic, and then she just murders all of them. There's also like, again, like they have a ship that they really need grain, but it also like the reactor is this. You have to see it to understand. The reactor is like a Statue of Liberty face that's barfing out like plasma conduits. And you say, oh, some person drew that. They didn't know what it was. They just thought it looked cool. And Zack Snyder said, that's great. Let's put that in there. And then even with like the slow motion, at one point, the Tarzan guy who fights with axes, they show his origin, and he's like a prince, and his mom is the queen, and she stands up on a ledge, and it's all in slow motion. And then he's like, and that day the Empire took from me. And it's like, bro, just go grab her. She's very slowly moving, even not in slow motion. You can just walk across the freaking veranda, grab her wrist, and be like, Mom, don't kill yourself in front of me. It's going to turn me into Tarzan. And just like nothing, Matt, the only thing that kept me going is most of the stuff looks pretty cool. Yeah, even this dopey robot with antlers. Yeah, okay, yeah. Can you see that?
The king.
He's like this wimpy prince, and there's like a giant eagle. Also, the first movie had a bunch of aliens, but the second one didn't. And it's not, it's not like Battlestar Galactica or The Expanse, where it's all humans. This started as a Star Wars pitch. So in the first movie, there was all kinds of different aliens, and in this one, there's literally one. Like, I forgot. Like, you see a 2-hour movie where you only see humans, and at the end, there's one alien. It's like an alien pops into an episode of The Office. Like, I'm like, what the hell's going on here? It's like, yes, Captain. It's like, what the hell? What was that? But can I recommend it? Can I recommend you watching 4 to 6 hours of I'm 14 and This Is Deep to Me, the movie? No. The thing is, I wasn't watching this like ironically. Sophia Boutella is beautiful, and she's so sincere in her acting. And like, the guns are cool. They have these like blunderbusses that they load on the side. That looks cool. A lot of stuff looks cool, so it just kept me in that regard of, does this look cool? But the story was just stupid. It was generic. It was a pastiche, and every time they got specific, it was they just couldn't stick the landing on anything. And God, at one point, like, so the villain, he gets completely trounced at the end of the first movie. Then they bring him back to life, and then they're like, God, the writing is so bad. They're like, Sire, I'm going to yell at the medics. They healed you from death, but they left a scar on your chest. He's like, no, I like it. No, that's not how a scene like that would go. What happens is they need to have a scene where they're bringing him into the room to repair him from all of his horrible injuries. And they're like, we're going to heal you, sire. We're going to make you perfect. Brand new. And he's like, keep this. And he points to the scar in his chest. He's like, I don't want to forget this. That's how you do that scene. Not like, oops, we brought you back from death, but we left this massive scar on your chest, which we easily could have fixed. Like, oops, we forgot. And it, like, the whole movie is just dopey writing like that. But it looks cool. Effects are good. Nice designs on basically everything. The designs belong like in 8 different movies and streaming shows. They don't belong all in the same one. It's kind of hard to explain. Like, you know, you have Star Wars where you have like plastic armor on stormtroopers, and then you got like wizards and cloaks, and like, you know, just kind of like regular military. And for some reason in Star Wars it's cohesive, and in Rebel Moon it absolutely is not. Like, just, it's weird. weird. But yeah, I can't recommend. Essentially, if you ever buy those like making of, yeah, that's what this is. This is a movie where you shouldn't watch the movie. You should just get the book or watch this Creating a Universe. It's like, oh, those designs are pretty cool. Oh, look, she's practicing her stunts. And then like little clips of like the good parts, but like, yeah. That being said, I might watch the director's cut of the second one, not the first one, which is just a pastiche of every sci-fi movie ever. But there were some really cool fights, especially in the second half of the second movie. So if there's more of those cool fights, yeah, but if it's just like, I am from the Eagle Planet, and then they killed all the eagles. They shot smaller eagles at them. That's a weakness that large eagles have. Smaller eagles can penetrate their eagly carapace. Like, anyway, thanks for watching. Bye.